Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota podcast. We're your number one. We think we're number one. We are number one South African cricket podcast. If you need any news on South African cricket, we are the people you need to go to. To follow us, you can follow us on YouTube at Full Quota Podcast. Please like and subscribe. You can also follow us on Twitter at Full Quota Pod. Everything is underneath here on the strap line. And then you can also, for the audio feeds, the guys who love audio, find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at Full Quota Podcast. And then finally, we've also got, you can buy us some coffee. Contributions will go, are greatly appreciated. And it's a way for you to let us know that you are there and you are a fan. We need to name our fans. I don't know what collective we can call our listeners and fans and viewers. But we'll figure it out. Tim, do you have any ideas?
I know that just the generic one comes to mind. Posse. Our posse.
The posse. No. The 12th man. Our 12th men and women. I think we'll try there, but not a posse. But yes, you can buy us coffee at buymecoffee.com /4 podcast. It just helps us keep going and helps pay for the expenses for putting up this podcast and everything else with us.
And it will make our product better, because then we will be able to do things that we are at the moment unable to do. So any small donations would be greatly appreciated. But as I've said many times before, we will never go behind a paywall. We will always have it for free. But as I say, any sort of donation would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, a podcast for the people. That's what we are. No paywalls here. Nothing. Anyway, a lot has happened in the cricketing world, and so we're going to be discussing that, and we'll also be discussing SAA. So you'll think about it's a midweek check-in for everyone, and we've watched SAA. We've had the squad announcement for the team to Afghanistan, which we'll be talking about on Monday, as well as the Women's World Cup squad that will be spoken about on Monday. We've also got news coming out with CSA having the AGM of the weekend with the adoption of the financial statements and the profit that was produced, which was 815 million, which is amazing and great news for South African cricket. And we're going to talk about that. And then finally, just what happened in SAA, who shined, who didn't shine, what happened in the 4-day match, because we thought everything was going well until that second innings. But that's what we're going to be doing. But let's start with the big news story of the day. Fidoz Munda of ESPN Cricinfo wrote an article around CSA recording profits for about 815 million rand for the last financial year. It must be caveated, Tim, that we hosted India, which brings in a lot more money. And then we also hosted a couple of other World Cups, which brought money in, and also SA20. So CSA from SA20 got 54 million rand, which is amazing, but they got 538 million rand. What is it? Oh yes, so last year, previous year, CSA collected 538 million rand in losses, and they got most of that profit coming out of broadcast rights from the India series. 566 came from ICC, up from last year 290 million, and also generated revenue for 54 million for hosting the 2024 Under-19 Men's World Cup. So good news, Tim. Very, very good news for South African cricket. That money is now going to flow back into the domestic game, right? We always known that the Proteas and having these tours with India and all of these people come, mostly India, but we want England and Australia. Those three give us bumper years in terms of profits, and that goes into the domestic game, and it goes to show where the domestic game is. But good signs.
Yeah, positive signs. All the caveats are important. We play India an awful lot in recent times, and that's just a fact. That's just a fact of life. And it's important that we do in these times when we are financially struggling. I hope in the years to come we are giving opportunities to everybody to come to South Africa and not just India. But it is important. We need the money to survive. We need the money to keep going. We need SA20. SA20 is going to be part of that vehicle to keep us on a steady ship. So from a financial point of view, it's all good news, even with those caveats that it's mostly India and SA20 teams are owned by Indian owners. So there's a lot of reasons why we are doing as well as we are. But long may it continue, because we need our cricket to survive. We need it to keep going. And if this is the way that it keeps those at the bottom, the domestic structure going, then so be it. As long as it happens, I'm happy.
The other thing we need to speak about is next year is not going to be as great, largely because of the fact that we're not hosting a big three team outside of India for 3 T20s. So that will bring something in. SA20 will bring in constant profits of around 54 million, and hopefully a little bit more as it grows a lot more. So we just need a caveat. We just need to be careful, because we're probably going to go into a lean period. We're not hosting England. We're not hosting Australia. And we're not going to be hosting India. We're actually going to be going to India. So that's going to be an opportunity lost. So hopefully with a lot more eyes on the men's game, the men's team, the women's team, that more sponsors will come in. We've seen Dafabet come in for the Proteas. We need more sponsors, and that's going to kind of cushion the lean years. So good news, but we're going down a path of some lean years. We've got and then with respect to Sri Lanka and Pakistan, it's not going to be a bumper summer, but we might see fans back in the stands, so that's going to help. But that's a small part of a small revenue line item. And then it's just broadcast rights. We just need to find a way to get more Proteas cricket around the world. And the only way that can happen is if we host people. So host tournaments, host the big three, and we need the big three to come through. It's been a while since we've had England. It's been a while since we've had Australia, so they need to come through. And if you look at the FTP program or the ICC cycle, it's going to be a very long time before we host a 4-test series, or even a 3-test series, or even 5 T20s, 7 ODIs type of thing between ourselves and Australia or England.
Which is why that home World Cup in 2027 is extremely important to the coffers of Cricket South Africa.
Yeah.
As you say, we're going through a lean period. We will be hosting a World Cup in under 3 years. So there is that.
Yes. So, Tim, we saw David Bedingham score a record score this week for Durham, Surrey. Who does he play for?
Durham.
Yes, it's that team, Durham.
Yeah.
Yes. 279, I think. You broke it down on Twitter, and so can you give us a sense of that massive score? Because everyone's excited. I'm sitting there going, well, he's not doing it for the Proteas, so why should I care?
Well, he is doing it for the Proteas bar 2 tests, but so it's the highest score by a Durham cricketer in county championship. It beats Martin Love's 273 in 2001. Look, it's important. It's important. We're not playing a lot of test cricket, but it's important that we have those sorts of individuals to keep producing the goods. We know he's an incredible talent. It's important that he keeps going. I want to say a few caveats. He even admitted it himself. The pitch was flat. The pitch was very flat. He and Ackerman came to the crease at 9 for 4. So at that point, it was a little bit tricky when they came to the crease, but it did become flatter and flatter and flatter. But you've still got to produce the goods. You've still got to go out there and do it, and do the hard yards, put in the hours. And if there's one individual that does that, it's David Bedingham. So My only thing is it's a shame we're not playing more Test cricket, but we will find out this week whether we're going to Bangladesh. This is obviously another sort of big story. So he will certainly be hoping that we will be going to Bangladesh, because at the moment he is in prime form.
So
It was a really good
I'm trying to
innings.
look at the bowlers that were bowling at him from Lancashire: Tom Bailey, Anderson Phillip, George Balderson, Tom Aspinwall, Tom Hartley, Luke Wells, Josh Bonahan, and George Bell. They probably had a very, very long time, a tough time out there on the flat pitch. Because 279, 359 balls, 27 falls, Tim, and 1 6. That's
Yeah,
that's a test match innings you want, right? 1 6 out of like
that's
359 balls.
that's it. That's exactly it. That's the sort of innings you want, and he
Yeah.
did it. Um, they interviewed him after the match, not after the match, so after his innings, and they asked him, "How many gloves did you change?" Because he was there for an awful long time. Anybody is for that for that sort of score, and he said, "I only changed my gloves once, but that was because it was so freezing."
Oh boy, but it's good.
Good
It's
old
good for Shukri. It's
English
good for
summer.
the yeah. I think it's good. I like it. Whenever you score over a double century, it doesn't matter what the pitch looks like. It may be flat, but he took advantage of the conditions and played really well. Sorry, I'm thinking I'm going
Yes.
to sneeze, but it's not working. And yeah, strike rate is high. Shukri must be very excited, and to a certain extent, I'm happy that there's hype. I'm happy there's hype around him, and it can hopefully it can translate to the Proteas because he's had a okayish start with the Proteas. West Indies was not great, but when he played at home, you got to see the glimpses of why this guy is really really good. There's another stat about him scoring the most first class runs in the world or something like that, or in county cricket. Is he the leading run scorer in county cricket or something like that?
Yes, he is the leading run scorer in county cricket in Division 1 this season by about 150 runs or so.
Jeez,
That is
David,
correct.
what are you
That is correct.
saying to us? What
And
are you saying to us?
just for clarification, 6 Test matches, an average of 40.
Yes.
And anybody that does 6 Test matches, averages 40, has got something about them. That's I'm just putting it out there. We in recent times we have found it very very difficult to find Test match batters who average 40. Our guys don't. Even the great Dean Elgar was averaging just below that.
Look, there was a
And
time where there was only one South African batter who averaged over 40 in the test team, and everyone else was averaging under 40. So, then there was a time we went in, that was Faf, and then everyone else around him averaged in the 30s. Then Faf left, and then everybody was in the 30s, and nobody was touching 40. So, good things. Yeah, Shukri. Hopefully, you can get to play in Bangladesh. If I was CSA, I'd ask to host Bangladesh at home, and we'll go back to them next year. The only question I want to figure out is obviously if that test series, if we, how do the World Test Championship points work then? Because South Africa needs to win those games, right? But fundamentally, obviously, if they take all those games away, that means that we have a lower set of games to qualify from. So because it's a percentage perspective, if you don't play those games, it doesn't count your percentage. But it's not my fault they're having a coup. We as South Africa are ready with a team. We can fly at any time, but can the ICC confirm that it'll be safe? And I don't want a situation where we forfeit World Championship points because we are choosing to not go, similar to Australia and Afghanistan, but that's another different topic. But Australia chose not to go because of their own reasons. Whereas with us, it's a political reason. So I'm hoping that we don't forfeit World Chess Championship points. because we need them. We can't. We effectively need to
Exactly.
win all our games bar one to make it to that
Yeah,
semi-final.
yeah. We can't not go. That's if we want to make the final, we can't not go. We can't not have the series. So hopefully they will come to some sort of agreement
Yeah.
and let's see what happens. We need the series to happen, definitely.
Yeah, and it's different to the Afghanistan question. If everyone is wondering, obviously Afghanistan has a bad record of human rights. They don't allow the women to do anything. They don't allow the women to work. Well, I'm assuming they allow them to work, but they're not allowed them in many of the spaces, and it's an apartheid against women. That's how I call it, right? And obviously it is their culture, but it's a big different question because we've allowed ICC allowed Afghanistan to participate in the World Cup, right? Whereas the ICC, the International Olympic Committee, told Afghanistan if they don't bring women, they're not participating in the Olympics, right? And so the question is, Bangladesh is more of a safety for the players situation. We're not taking political stances there, but Afghanistan is quite interesting, largely because A, South Africa has that history. B, Australia did boycott them in a bilateral, but then played them in a World Cup, which was wild. And then the question with CSA has always been apolitical. They don't want to make things make huge announcements. And I think from them, in terms of that question of why are we playing Afghanistan, it's largely because our government necessarily hasn't condemned them. We normally go with these things, Tim, where if the South African government said no to Morocco, for instance, right, then you would take your line like that. But it's been quite disappointing, actually. I think we should take a stand, but obviously it's also good for Afghanistan to grow the game. Us not going there may continually harm the growth of the game and potentially a women's team, but they don't have a women's team. They're not investing in a women's team when they should be. And I just don't know how I've been feeling a little 50-50 around it and a little uneasy around this Afghanistan thing because I think we shouldn't be playing them. I think to take a stand. But everyone's taking their own weird hypocritical stance, or not hypocritical, but like counter stances, right? Play them in a World Cup, but don't not play them in a bilateral series. But for our players,
95,
they want to play.
yeah, obviously, 95% of these decisions are based on money. That's the truth of it. It's based on money. The
Yeah.
the morals quietly go out the window. So obviously, it definitely feels uncomfortable. I don't think it should be happening. I think that a stance should be taken, but the people that decide these things, they do it on. We all know why they come to the decisions that they do. Let's just leave it at that, shall
Yes.
we?
Yeah, no, let's leave it at that. Okay, let's talk SAA. We're here to talk SAA. So, Sri Lanka A played SAA in in three ODIs and two unofficial tests. The second unofficial test starts on the weekend on Sunday. The first unofficial test ended a couple of days ago in Kimberley. So we're going to be talking about that. So Sri Lanka A won the ODI series 2-1. We saw some interesting batting stats from South Africa and Sri Lanka A. David Bedingham, who we were talking about, scored 188 in one of the games. He was the leading run scorer in the series. The next best South African is at number 5 with Matthew Bretsky, 138. He scored a 74 in the series. Mikhail Prince making his A debut, 99 runs in the series. He scored a 44. He's the third highest run scoring South African. Tony DeZorzi opening 78 with a high score with a 53 in tow. It's just a half century here and there. Devil Brevis played 2 games, scored 48 runs and got 39. Mutasami's in there. Andilesi Milani with a bit of a cameo in one of the games, 27 runs. Not much to write home about the batting from a bowling perspective, Andile Petlugwayo was our best bowler with 5 wickets in 2 games. Devo Brevis took 4 wickets in 2 games. Then Tristan Lees, 4 wickets. Andile Similani, 2 wickets. Ethan Bosch only taking 2 wickets out of the 2 games that he played. Diane Khalim, 1 wicket out of the 2 games. Tim, we built this series, this SAA series, is a series of storylines. Guys like Dan Khalim needing to do something, to put their hands up, being given opportunities. Who did you see in this ODI series that put their hand up for higher honors and reconfirmed or confirmed to us that they should be in the pipeline going forward from an ODI perspective?
Very few, if I'm honest. It was a very, very disappointing series. Look, I think there's going to be more of these A series, and I think what is important in a general sense is that the result is not. It's not. The result should not be the imperative. It should not be the imperative, because you are producing cricketers who are your imperative. Your imperative should be you are producing cricketers for the step up. You are producing cricketers that can go straight into the Proteas setup and not be overawed by the occasion. Losing a series, as a general rule, doesn't matter. Losing in the fashion that we did is a problem. The Sri Lankan A side is more experienced than us. If you look at across the 2 squads, they've got at least double the amount of caps for Sri Lanka than we have. So they've come with a side that I think a handful of the players will definitely be playing for the national side when their national side comes later in the year. That they've come up with a clear goal. It was the same old story for us, though. We struggled with our bowling, except for the opening power plays. Opening power plays, we did quite well. But in general, we struggled with the ball. And the same with the batting. The batting, as soon as anybody with spin came on, it was over. It was curtains. It didn't matter. It was left arm, right arm, off spin, leg spin. I think they've got a very nice leg spinner, Sri Lanka. I was very impressed with him. Very accurate and spun the ball nicely. But it was the same sort of problems for South Africa. I really can't think of too many shiny lights. The only shiny lights for me, and we will get to this next week when we talk about the Proteas tours to Afghanistan and Ireland. I think Pet McQuire was an important series for him. And I think Pet McQuire, particularly with the ball, definitely made a difference, and he made the series closer than it otherwise would have been. And then in the final game, we talked about Bedingham already, but I've always said that Bedingham should be playing across formats. I always said he should be playing for the Proteas, at least in ODI and Test cricket. Maybe not T20s, but certainly the other 2 formats. And that second innings, the last match that he played, when he made that mammoth 188, that showed the class. That showed the class of the man who's able to transfer across formats. He played absolutely outstandingly. And he plays in a very similar way whenever you watch him play in the 4-day setup. There's a similar sort of momentum that he goes about his innings. Similar type of tempo. So those are the only 2 that really stand out for me. There were moments, perhaps. I think our ground fielding was good. We made
Tim, when you speak about how good our fielding is, it tells me that everything else was bad.
Exactly. No, exactly.
And to a certain extent, I think some of the guys who were in and around the Proteas setups shone. So Matthew Briedsky shone, Andile Petlugwayo shined, David Bedingham showed that he's He's done this. Tony DeZorzi to a certain extent. Dievel Brevis is still underwhelming. If you guys want Dievel Brevis in the ODI side, he needs to be dominating games like this. He needs to be putting his hand up, and he's not. So it just kind of tells you, where he is as a cricketer. And I looked and I was like, I wasn't impressed. He's got all the tools, but it's not there yet, right? And to a certain extent, that's what these things are. If you can't dominate a Sri Lanka A side, you're going to then struggle when you're playing the real thing, right? And I think that's the thing that you need to be looking at.
We're playing them at home. We're not playing them away on Candy. We're playing them on our own pitches. And if I'm honest, we're getting schooled. We're getting comfortably beaten, and that's a huge, huge, huge concern.
Yeah, and the other concerns for me was Luto Supamla as well as Dan Khalim. I don't think we should see Dan Khalim in these things again. Luto Supamla still needs to have. I think the only way he can come back into an SAA side right now is if he tears apart domestic cricket this season. It was just really disappointing to see from that. But also the fact that we couldn't play Dusan Hemanta was a bit of a problem. It's so frustrating to me that South African cricket has this Achilles heel, and it's always spin. Regardless of where we go in the world, it's always spin. Like this team that's going to play Afghanistan in the UAE, I'm expecting a low scoring thing because Rashid Khan's going to come out there and be like, "Yeah, I got you." And to a certain extent in the semi-final, that was our fear, right? Even if we had bowled them out for 61, we were like, "Oh Lord, we could get bowled out for 50 here because we have this Achilles heel." So yeah, we need to figure out ways to kind of sort it out. But anyway, let's go to the test matches, right? The unofficial test. Oshada Fernando, you've heard of him. Scored 202 runs in that game. Matthew Brzezinski, 133. Marcus Ackerman, 96. Good to see him. 96 runs over 2 innings. He scored a 69. Brzezinski scored 129, I beg your pardon, and Fernando scored 122. I was reading the wrong column on ESPN Cricket Info, sorry. And Tapang Ditole with a half century in that game. Bear Swanepoel, 38 not out in that game. Neil Brunt, captain, 39. Rivaldo Moonsamy, 34 not out on some of the notable run scorers in that game. Wicket takers, Bear Swanepoel, 4 for 52 in the game. And Prenelin Subryan took 3 wickets in the game. Cody Yusuf took 3 wickets in the game. Miguel Pretorius took 2 in the game. And you had 1 for Patrick Kruger and Neil Brunt. Disappointing there, Tim, in the fact that the team lost by 6 wickets. Sri Lanka just capitulated them in that second innings, being bowling them out for 124.
Yeah, look, it started well. We batted first. We were, if I remember correct, I'm just gonna get that. We were sort of 240 for 5, around about there. So you were thinking that's gonna be
310 for 5.
There we go. 310 for 5. That's even worse. 310 for 5. You're thinking, it is. For what happened, it is. 310 for 5. You're thinking 450. 450. Yeah. It wasn't a difficult surface to bat on early on. It became more difficult, but certainly the first couple of days, it was flat. Just thinking 450. With the Arsenal that we had, the batting that we had a strong batting top 6. And we got ball after 372. From that moment, from that 372, it was a mountain to climb, and it became more and more and more and more difficult. You've touched on the shining lights. Brzezinski's 100, fantastic. Ackerman 69, fantastic. I'm delighted with Toli's 52. we did discuss this when we spoke about it. The only question I would have is, if you want that step up, you want him to
Strike rate.
strike rate. That's what you want to
Yeah,
work on. You want to work on
he
the
scored
strike.
his 52 with a strike rate of 40. But the most important thing is you stay in there, you build a platform, and he made sure that the platform was there, right? So if you look at
Yeah,
what is it? Just
yeah.
trying to grab that scorecard. So 62 run opening stand over 20 overs is not a bad thing. It is not a
No,
bad thing.
no,
Even
no.
as an opener,
It's
strike
just
rate of 40 is a little bit low, but I'll take it.
it's just unfortunate that he lives in the times of Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett and various other teams that are trying to do versions of that where we
Mm,
need to score quickly, and that's just where we are at the moment. But as you say, foundation was set for 450, and for some explicable reason, we combined for 372, and that was basically it.
the end of it all.
Um, the bowling performance was very substandard. Um, we did discuss this at the end of last season. This A side, what it missed, and I didn't think it was going to miss this sort of shrunken A side in our own backup, but what it missed was genuine pace in that attack. It
Mm,
missed somebody who was rapid, who could rough them up a bit. And that's the one thing it definitely missed. It all had sort of medium fast bowlers bowling decent lengths on a pitch that wasn't doing much, and it became very, very easy. But I would say Sri Lanka in that first innings batted very, very well. Um, we know Ashada Fernando. He has played 21 tests for Sri Lanka,
mm,
so he's a serious, serious player. Um, but I just felt that we lacked something in that bowling, and I thought we lacked something throughout the performances. Um, and then the second innings, I don't know what so Matthew Brzezinski did an interview this morning with
mm.
one of the newspapers. I can't remember what he quoted, but he said something. I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of they relaxed in the second innings. They
Mm,
thought, well, it's going to be a draw. When we started that second innings, it was a draw. It was a draw all over it. Um, and that would have been perfect foundation for us. But it
mm,
definitely felt like they relaxed. It felt like they were not taking it as seriously as they should have. There were a couple of special shots, one or two balls that kept a little bit low.
mm,
But it was just and then with the bowling, when we were having to pull a rabbit out of a hole, and that final day, the bowling was not up to standard. They still fought like in South African fashion, but we were second best. If we're honest, we were second best from day to lunch. We were second best, and
yes, because we got bowled out
that's
in the afternoon of day two.
yeah,
After bowling them out with a lead of 50. And
yeah,
that was my disappointment, right? Normally in games like this, I know 4-day games can turn on a dime. They know that too. They're the best in the country right now domestically. If you had to pick a domestic 11, it'd be guys like this. And you found that like you can't be allowing yourself, especially Sri Lanka, being bowled out with by right arm medium fast post paces. Sudra is his name. Vijay Sundera. Yes. No,
yeah.
man. You can't allow a guy to take 7 wickets in your second innings. There's no way.
I just want to. If he's not in the Sri Lankan national side at the end of the day, then Sri Lanka have done something seriously wrong. I get your point in general. You're 100% right. This boy was moving it both ways, and he was bowling Yorkers at will. He was highly impressive. I don't know where they've hit him, I don't know why he hasn't played for the national side at this point. He's not a 19-year-old. He is a seriously good find for me. I was highly impressed with him. Yeah, big find. But I get your general point. If it's a leg spinner or a mystery spinner,
We understand that's
fair
Achilles'
enough.
heel. You can't be bowled
Yeah,
up by
fair enough.
a fast bowler
Yeah.
or even a medium pacer.
Yeah. But this guy was fast. This guy was fast medium, definitely.
Yes. Yeah. How were our bowlers, Bear Swanepoel and Miguel Pretorius? Because I watched glimpses of them and I got a sense that there's a reason why they aren't necessarily knocking on the Proteas' door, and it stems from pace, Tim.
Exactly. They are not opening bowlers. They are not going to open the bowling for South Africa in any format. It's just not going to happen. If they do, then it's an experiment. It's an experimental game. I don't know what game we're playing. I like them both. I think they've got huge talents, but they are, for me, batting all-rounders. Actually, no, they're not. They're not batting all-rounders. I'm being harsh. They are all-rounders. They are genuine all-rounders, but they are, I would say, they are second-change bowlers. They are second-change bowlers. They are very useful to have, very handy to have, but they should not be opening the bowling at this level, even at the A level. They are not quick enough. That is the crux of the situation. What should be happening is Sapamla should be opening and knocking, causing all sorts of problem, and then they come on.
Didn't. Yeah.
When he didn't play.
Yes.
I'm hoping he plays in the second test.
Because the other thing is Cody Yusuf played, but you didn't open the bowling with Cody Yusuf, who I think is the fastest out of the three. I'd have wanted Cody to open with Miguel, but as well. But we know Cody doesn't have that necessarily skill to get up that level, and he's still making his way in domestic cricket. So I think it was a big loss not to play Luto Supamla, who has international experience, but hopefully on the 15th, Luto then gets a game. Because the one thing that we're going to in South Africa is actually we don't have the fast bowlers. Joe Coetzee is the last of a somewhat dying breed. Gwenda Mapaka's coming in, but where are the rest?
Well, I think a little bit, because I think there are. I just think they're not quite getting the honors. So, for me, if you are looking, and I'm looking for a pacer, and Gwenda Parker can't be picked because he's got exams at the moment. Fair enough. I'm not gonna
Good luck, young man. We've been there. We understand matric. We've been there. Past, dude. Just forget about cricket for like 6 months. We'll see you at SA20 when we're celebrating the fact that you finished matric. Yeah, but I don't want to see Gwenda playing cricket in the next 6 months, please. 3 months, please, everybody.
Yes. But what this team needs is pace. So I'm picking Joe for Dyke. He's now at the Knights. I'm playing him. Now, he's not necessarily going to play for South Africa, but I believe he's good enough for this level, the level just below. And he has got that extra bit of pace on him. He has got the ability to bowl the bouncer. The other guy that I would be looking at is Tristan Lewis, the Dolphins. If you want pace, those are two guys that you could. I would be happy with Joe van Dijk. Joe van Dijk is more that kind of a role, but they are for me. And then you've got Gwena in 6 months' time.
It's some guy I wanted to be in this series. He's quick. He's got all the attributes of being quick, and he had a great end of the season. And we're just not rewarding people for that. And I kind of feel like we've given to Sri Lanka a disservice. How are we entertaining our Sri Lankan brethren who came here for pace? And They're the ones giving us the pace problem, and we are just like, yeah, here's a right arm fast medium. It's okay. It's what you've seen in Sri Lanka before, you know.
Well, we're playing
Whereas they're asking us to give them to unleash the beast, but we're not unleashing any beasts.
we're playing 3 all-rounders that last game. Why are we playing 3 all-rounders? We don't need to
Makes
play
no
3
sense.
all-rounders. You know, I like all 3 of them. I really do. I think they got bright futures
Yeah.
ahead of them in different facets. But 3 all-rounders in an unofficial test 4-day game against the Sri Lanka A side, with none of them can bowl 140. That doesn't make sense to me. You could have at least
No,
one
and
guy that can touch 140.
yes, and to a certain extent, it happened when we played the West Indies and what other team? India A. When India were here earlier in the year, West Indies and India brought their next best paces. You got to see Avish Khan. You got to see I don't know who that other guy is. We played in the World Cup final. Anyway, all those youngsters coming up after the Surajas, they played, and they were quick. West Indies gave us Seals and some of the youngsters that they have there. And Sri Lanka are coming with guys who can do it, who they believe are quick enough, and they're here to test them in these conditions. Why
Well,
are we not doing the same? I feel like we're just missing a trick. You at least have an express pacer. And I understand we thought Miguel Pretorius is that guy. Now we know he isn't, but the coaches should have known. We're the ones, as the fans and the analysts, to be like, because sometimes we play these games, we look at these games and they don't have speed guns, right? There's that other kid from Northwest who played in the T20, and I was sitting there going, this kid could
Dylan
play
Peters.
him. He's quick. Introduce the others to that, right? And we're worried about a fast bowling stocks, and we're not doing anything to help it. We're just going to throw all rounders at the problem because somehow, somewhere, our batters are abdicating responsibility.
Just to add more salt to it, the guy you mentioned, Puchasanda, and Ishad Malinga, they were both quicker than anything we had
Yes,
by some distance. They were
and we
both
saw that.
genuine pace bowlers, and we had none. And we're South Africa. We're playing in our own backyard. It really is strange.
Unleash the pace. Like when we play test matches, we play with 3 quicks who all can get to 140. Why are we changing the formula at SAA? Like we want all rounders like we're England. England can afford to do that because those pitches, bowl 129, you can still get wickets. Here, you can't get wickets bowling 129. But domestically, you can get wickets bowling 135. And that's what's happened. And that's why we have these guys here. That's how Duan Olivier made a living in this new franchise system, this new provincial system. So, yeah, look, it's disappointing, but yeah, we hope that they rectify it in the next test. We can't be blown out and whitewashed at home. And also, let Sri Lanka know what it is to play on the high field. They're playing in Benoni. It's easy. You get a little bit of bounce. It's a little flatter than the other pitches around Gauteng, but you get some carry, you get some bounce, you can cause problems, especially in the morning. When the toss, bowl first. There's a lot of wind around. It's going to be overcast conditions because we're waiting for rain. And yeah, just put them under pressure. Like, I don't get it. Give them what it feels like to play South Africa. Because when Oshada Fernando comes back to South Africa, opening the batting for Sri Lanka in those tests that we're going to have at the end of the year, when he faces Gagiso, possibly Kwena after he's written his matric exams, possibly Gerald if he's fit, possibly Marco. I know he's not going to be playing. Even if you throw, okay, Lungi's not going to be there, but yeah, throw 2 of those 3 there. Nandre Berger, he's going to be jumping up and down. Yeah. They weren't in the last game. At least give them a proper test. or is this the plan to maybe we're lulling them into a false sense of security to think that South Africa is great, which is why we're sending them to Kimberley, which is a flat track, and then we're sending them to the flattest track on the Highveld in Benoni. And then you think, oh yeah, no, it's great. Send them to Barge. Should have sent them to Potchefstroom. But even then, we did. They played 3 ODIs there, and we didn't unleash the Kraken. All our fast bowlers were everywhere. And we then got beaten by a leg spinner. Very disappointing with team. I want to talk good things. But anyway, let's close this out, Tim. Obviously, Matthew Bretsky's putting his hand up in terms of Protea honours. Has Marcus Ackerman given himself a chance at a long look from Shukri?
I think so. I think he's at least made Shukri keep one eye open. So, you know what? Right left hand combination. We don't have a lot of right hand left hand combination in the test side at the moment. So that's also something to think about. I've always been a fan. I've always thought he's had the temperament and the technique. He hasn't always been consistent. I think in recent times he has. I think he's certainly taking note now. I think it's enough. He's doing enough now to at least Shukri to take note. Should there be an injury somewhere or a need for a right-left hand combination in that middle order for whatever reason, certainly is a glimmer of hope that he might be looked at a wider Proteas squad in the near future, possibly.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. And well done to Tabang Tole. If you are a domestic cricketer and are looking for higher honors, an interview with us won't hurt. So seemingly this podcast has got, we might have an eye to the coaches, who know, an ear to the coaches. Maybe they just be watching like, oh yeah, it's a bung. Yeah, average 40 last year. Come in. And so he's done well. Hopefully he continues to do a lot better. Shout out to Mikhail Prince, youngster in the A squad for the ODIs and actually putting his hand up as a very good up-and-coming batter, someone who he can slot into the ODI side for 2027 if possible, if things work out. But yeah, it is about building the base, and it's sad that guys haven't been able to take their opportunities. Hopefully in this next game they will. Tim, we'll be back on Monday talking all the squads, team people going to Afghanistan, giving you the storylines of guys going to Afghanistan. These are the type of series similar to the West Indies series. This Ireland and Afghanistan series is a series where you should not let yourself get kicked out of the national team conversation. We don't need you to be pulling out duds. If you get the thanks for coming award, that's fine. But don't give us a you performed poorly award. And we're going to talk all of that, including the upcoming ICC Women's Cricket World Cup. So for myself and Tim, remember, follow us on X at Full Quota Pod. Subscribe to the Full Quota Podcast on YouTube and because then you'll get notifications when we go live. Like now, yes. And also, please follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you want an audio version. And also, remember, please, we appreciate any contribution at buymeacoffee.com/Full Quota Pod. And one last thing, Tim. Durham just won their match against Lancashire, even though we thought the pitch was flat. So they won by an innings and whatever runs. But anyway, the pitch was flat. David Bedingham did an incredible job. Well done, David. We look forward to these types of innings for the Proteas. Feel free to do it for the Proteas. Feel very free. We will be here waiting to talk about it. For ourselves here at the Full Quota Podcast, it's goodbye and lesale.